What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my updated college football playoff predictions as we head into week number 12 of this 2024 college football season. We got the playoff rankings coming out tonight. They're coming out at 8:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Central Time. They're coming, in between the basketball games and everything. I think it's going to be come before the Kentucky and Duke game, right after the Kansas and Michigan State game. So those playoff rankings will be coming out a little bit late, tonight and everything. So it will be a lot different compared to the first rankings where they came out at 7 o'clock. But I'm going to give you my updated playoff predictions here. Going to show you my predictions here from my bracket. Again, this is not really based off of, pretty much, what I think is going to happen at the end of the year. This is kind of, based off of how the season has gone, pretty much in the entire regular season. So, and I made a lot of changes here to my playoff predictions. With all the chaos that we've had in the last couple weeks, I have made a ton of changes in the last couple weeks, and I made a ton of changes here for this week. So let's go ahead and get started here. We'll look at the bracket here and show you my top 4 Power 4 conference champions, and then, of course, the Group of 5 champion as well. So here is the bracket for the 12-team playoff. I got Oregon at number 1, Texas at number 2, Clemson at number 3, and then BYU at number 4. So you're probably wondering, why is Clemson here at number 3? Before I get to that, though, Oregon is my number 1 seed. They are the top team in the country, the best team in the country at 10-0. I mean, as of right now, I think Oregon does win out. They go 12-0. They get to the Big Ten championship. I mean, as of right now, I'd probably take them against Ohio State, but I probably will change my pick. I'm going to change my predictions once we get into the postseason. That's where really my predictions will come out and everything pretty much for the rest of the year. So I got Oregon at number 1, Texas at number 2. With Georgia losing now from last weekend to Ole Miss, I don't really think I feel confident with Georgia now, to be honest. I feel like, Texas might be the best team in the SEC. They got that one conference loss, and then you got Texas A&M. You got Tennessee as well with one conference loss. LSU probably now out of it, so Texas probably is that front runner in the SEC, even though the standings do show Tennessee up ahead of Texas. But, I mean, it's pretty much a three-way tie right now for that one conference loss, and then you got other 2-loss teams in the SEC battling for a playoff spot, and then also still battling for a conference championship spot, and then Clemson. So let's talk about Clemson here at number 3. With Miami losing, to Georgia Tech and everything, that does, shake up the ACC a little bit. I mean, Miami now needs a loss from maybe Clemson and maybe a loss for SMU. I think that's probably the most important thing. I think SMU probably needs to lose a game in order for Miami to make it to the conference championship, because Miami and SMU don't play each other. So that's definitely a concern here for Miami going the rest of the way. But I think how it plays out, let's say Clemson probably meets SMU in the conference championship. I think Clemson wins it. They get in there as an 11-2 team. And they have a couple of tough losses, but the Georgia game is still a pretty good loss for them, and then you got the loss to Louisville, which is looking a lot better here for Clemson. So yeah, I think that's how Clemson gets in here as the number 3 Power 4 conference champion, and I think they would have a better resume than BYU if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, BYU at number 4. They were at number 4 for me last week. I think BYU as of right now is going to win out. They're going to go 12-0, but I wouldn't be shocked here if we saw them lose a game somewhere here going the rest of the way forward, because we did see Iowa State and Kansas State now lose already, 2 games. And then, of course, you got Colorado. Colorado and BYU. It's going to come down to both of these teams, maybe for that number 4 spot. But, yeah, BYU here at number 4, and then the Group of 5 champion is Boise State. So Boise State gets in here at number 12. They have been impressive, the most, impressive Group of 5 team. They have the best resume out of all the Group of 5 teams. They got the loss to Oregon. They got the win over Washington State. And yeah, those are pretty good losses there. Those are pretty good losses to Oregon, but they beat Washington State, and they also have a win over UNLV, which is a pretty solid win as well. So Boise State at number 12. Let's now get into the at-large teams here from 5 through 11, starting with my number 5 seed. That's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I got Ohio State here at number 5. I think Ohio State, if they beat Indiana, they're going to get to the Big Ten championship. I mean, as of right now, it's kind of like a 3-way tie. I know Penn State just has one loss as well, but Ohio State beat them in the head-to-head. So that should be enough for Ohio State to get in there into the Big Ten championship. But if Indiana does beat Ohio State, what if Indiana gets in here at number 5 with a loss to Oregon in the Big Ten Championship? That is going to be very interesting to watch. But I got the Buckeyes here at number 5. As of right now, I do have Ohio State beating Indiana. I mean, they get that game at home, so I got the Buckeyes here at number 5. Number 6 for me is Tennessee. So Tennessee gets in here at number 6. Again, Georgia losing to Ole Miss does hurt Georgia's kind of chances to make the playoff as an at-large team. Because what if Tennessee beats Georgia this weekend? If Tennessee beats Georgia, I think Tennessee could win out, and they can go to the SEC championship. It could either be against Texas or Texas A&M, because Tennessee just has one loss to Arkansas. I mean, that loss is not looking good for them now because Arkansas is like 5-4. But what if Arkansas beats Texas this week? I mean, that's definitely going to shake up the SEC going the rest of the way forward. But Tennessee will have a big test coming up against Georgia this weekend in Athens. But I think Tennessee has a chance to win it. You know, the running game is pretty good for them. Nico Amaliava getting injured is definitely a big concern for Tennessee. But, you know, I think they definitely deserve this at-large spot here at number 6. I mean, as of right now, I think it's Texas versus Tennessee, just depending on what happens between Texas and then Texas A&M. But if Tennessee loses this weekend, Georgia will be right back here at maybe number 6, or maybe they could be at the number 7 spot or number 8 spot, because they have 2 conference losses. So let's now go to my number 7 seed. My number 7 seed is Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win out. They go 11-1. They get in there as an at-large team with an 11-1 record, and they have the loss to Ohio State, so that's definitely going to put them enough into the playoffs. So I got them as the number 7 seed. Number 8, that's actually Alabama. So Alabama is back in this playoff picture. You look at their win over LSU, that was probably enough, you know, for me to put them back in these playoff predictions. And I was really impressed with Alabama's performance. Jalen Milroe was really good at running the football. He had over 180-something yards of rushing, 4 rushing touchdowns. So a great performance by this Alabama team. And with that win over LSU, it was kind of like a playoff eliminator type game for an at-large spot. So Alabama is back in it here. I think Alabama, I could see them going 10-2 and getting in here as an at-large team. So watch out here for the Crimson Tide. This team really could be dangerous going the rest of the way. Moving on to number 9, that is Notre Dame. So Notre Dame gets in here at number 9. Notre Dame doesn't have like the greatest resume, but they still have that win over Texas A&M, which is really going to be enough here to put them in the playoff. And then they also got the loss to, like, you know, a one loss coming, you know, to Northern Illinois, but that's not a great loss for them. That's a bad loss, but I think the Fighting Irish do get enough here. They get in here as an at-large team. If you look at the schedule the rest of the way, it's not really that bad. So Notre Dame here at number 9. Moving on to number 10, another team here that's back in the playoff picture, and that is Ole Miss. So Ole Miss here at number 10. They beat Georgia 22-10, I should say, this past Saturday night. That win was kind of enough for me to put the Rebels back in here as an at-large team. I think they can probably win out, go 10-2, because they don't have to play Alabama. You look at the schedule the rest of the way coming up. I'm not sure who they play this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, but they do have maybe a bye week somewhere between that range, and then they got, of course, have to play Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, but they got to go on the road to play Florida as well, so that might be a tough game if DJ Lagway does return at the quarterback position, but if he does not play, Ole Miss should be able to take care of business. But I got the Rebels here back in the playoff conversation at number 10, and then number 11, same thing from last week, that's Indiana. Indiana, if they compete against Ohio State, they'll definitely be in here as an at-large team, but they'll definitely not be in there just inside the top 4, and same thing inside the top 10 and everything. Indiana's going to probably get in there as a number 11 seed because Indiana doesn't have a great resume. They don't really have like good wins on their schedule. I mean, maybe the Washington game is pretty solid, and you got Michigan. That's a pretty solid win. But if they compete against Ohio State, they'll definitely be in here as an 11-1 team. But if they beat them, Indiana's going to definitely be up here, maybe somewhere in that number 5 spot, or they could probably get to the Big Ten championship. So Indiana here at number 11. Let's now make predictions here. If these games were to happen this weekend, not that it doesn't really matter here, but we'll start with the first round games. Of course, the first round games are going to be held on campuses. So Alabama versus Notre Dame, I think Alabama wins that game. And then Ohio State, I think they beat Boise State. That's a very tough place to play here for the Broncos. I think Ohio State would definitely shut down Ashton Jeanty, give him a really tough game at the running back position. So I got Ohio State and Alabama moving on to second round games. And then Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss beats Penn State here on the road. The way that Ole Miss is playing on the defensive side of the football now, and basically based off of that win over Georgia, the offense continues to really get better down the stretch. Yeah, I think Ole Miss beats Penn State here on the road. I know that's a very tough place to play, but I do kind of trust Lane Kiffin a little bit more in these big games. So yeah, Ole Miss here at number 10, they move on. And then Tennessee, I think they beat Indiana here. It would be a pretty high-scoring game here between these two teams, but got to go with Tennessee here in Knoxville. Very tough place to play here if it was at Tennessee for Indiana. And then we move on to the second round in the quarterfinals. I think Oregon beats Alabama in a close game. I think that would probably be a shootout there between those two teams. But I do trust Dylan Gabriel a little bit more than Jalen Milroe. And I think Oregon wins that game. And then Ohio State beats BYU. BYU definitely not on the level of Ohio State. I don't think that game will be pretty close. I think, it probably would be a game where Ohio State probably wins like 14 to 17 points, somewhere in that range. So yeah, not even a close game whatsoever. Ohio State beats BYU here in the second round. And then I think Texas beats Ole Miss here in the second round. Boy, that would be a great matchup there. Texas versus Ole Miss in the second round. You got two very explosive offenses, two very experienced quarterbacks. Defensively, I would probably have to give the advantage to Texas in this one, but it's a pretty tight game. It would be a pretty tight game here between these two teams. And then Tennessee, I think they beat Clemson here. I think Tennessee has a much more better defense than Clemson. I mean, offensively, I think Tennessee probably would get things going by this point, and with Nico Maliava probably healthy by this point, Tennessee, I think, wins this game. So I got the Vols moving on here to the semifinals. And then we get Oregon versus Ohio State in the semifinals for the third time in a rematch. And then you got Texas versus Tennessee. Boy, that would be a great matchup there as well. Oregon, though, and Ohio State, I've been picking Ohio State here for the third time in this matchup. And I did say that Ohio State was going to beat Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. And they would also beat them for the third time. So I got to go with the Buckeyes here. Still picking my preseason pick. Ohio State wins that game. And then Texas, I think they beat Tennessee here in a close game. Defensively, I kind of would give the advantage to Texas in this one. I mean, offensively, I think you would have to give the advantage to Texas here in this one as well. So I got Texas beating Tennessee here in a close game. And then I'm going to go with Ohio State here in the national championship. Ohio State's kind of been my pick now. Maybe since last weekend, I don't really feel confident with Georgia now, even though they were my preseason pick. I do feel confident here with the Buckeyes now. I think Ohio State might be a dangerous team here going the rest of the way forward. But like I said, this is not based off of what I think is going to happen at the end of the year. This is just based off of week by week in the regular season. If the playoff were to start this weekend, this is how I think it would look like. But yeah, I will definitely change my pick here. Picks here as we go into the postseason. Conference championship weekend is where I think, I'm going to really change my picks a lot. And that's going to be my real predictions going into the rest of the year. So Ohio State, I think, wins the national championship based off of the regular season week by week. But those are my updated playoff predictions as we head into week number 12 of this 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about my playoff predictions. Give me your playoff predictions down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.